Hey, welcome to the best of everything. I am Ruben Paul, and across from me is my brother, my shit starting partner in crime. Even though I don't start shit, he does. Mr. Johnny Sanchez.
Yeah. What's up?
What's
you
up,
do
brother?
start a little bit. It's you do it in your shit starting is like subtle.
How's it subtle? See, you always
Because I've seen you with when comics get off a stage or something, then you'll just be like, you'll give them a little bit of a jab, but it's in a nice like complimentary kind of non-complimentary kind of way. Like you'll just say something like, "Have you ever thought about doing this instead?" Where
Me?
I would just go, "Hey man, you should really get rid of that bit." That's like,
You're literally making. When have I went up
you
to?
always do stuff, little things like that. You're
I
like, "Man,
never.
Can I tell you something?"
To who?
Oh my god, it's the list is too.
Oh
What do
my-
I start?
What he's saying is absolutely 1000% not true. I don't go up to people and randomly offer critiques. If it's me and you, or maybe me and Tony, or somebody I'm really close to, but I don't care enough about anybody else to really
you
go
told
up to
me,
them.
like you had a
No,
discussion
that's
with
mean.
comics. No, with comics, you were like, "Hey man, I was talking."
No,
to
that's
so-and-so.
no, that's if they ask me.
Okay.
If somebody asks me my opinion, but I don't do that because you know why? Comics are sensitive, man. We were just talking about that.
I know.
And at the end of the day, it's none of my business. Now, if you're my friend and we talk about comedy like me and you do or whatever, like, hey, because you do the same to me, like, hey man, when you do that, what if you tried,
Right. Right.
So, and which I do appreciate.
Yeah, of course. And then there's the ones that come, the unwelcomed critiques that some comics will be like, hey, and then it's really, really bad advice.
Yeah, I don't like.
I always feel bad for the comics who are really trying, and yet either the tag is really awful. They give you a new tag. Have you ever tried this, man? And you're just like, oh. Or I feel so bad. I hate that, dude, because I'm just
we're
like,
getting a tag from a bad comic.
Yeah, man. And
hey, you know what you should try is like, you need to worry about your act.
Yeah, I don't need to. Or the other one is this happens now. This is all about like somebody being creative and they don't know that this bit is already done. You know when a bit is done. Like I've worked and worked and worked. It's gone this way and that way. It's where it needs. It's completely polished.
Yeah.
And then,
but I will say this though, I do agree with you.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And
I
then
do agree
someone tries to take you in this way off, and you're like, I don't know, man. It seems like it's already long, and my shit's long enough as it is, dude.
I know, dude. But then sometimes what I do like about that, and me and you have had that similar debate on something where something feels like it's done.
Try it.
It's just what's dope about having talented friends in this business or people's opinion that you trust is it's a different perspective. And sometimes you can be doing a bit and the bit works great and in your mind is done.
Right.
And somebody can go, hey man, have you ever thought to try it this way? And then you go, never thought of that. Not once did my brain go in that direction to think that. And of course, because it comes from their sensibility or their perspective, so they see it. And then sometimes you can use it and implement it into what you're doing, or sometimes you don't. But yeah,
but there are those ones where you go, that's so not me.
Oh, of course.
It doesn't. That you just go, I can't get away with that.
Yeah,
because it's coming from what they do.
Of course.
So they're like, hey man, try this, try that. You know what I
mean? And that's why when I write for people, I'm very meticulous and very conscious of knowing who they are and what their point of view is,
how they would deliver
how they're
it.
Perceived, and what their brand is, and what you know what I mean. So when I'm writing, I'm not saying this isn't necessarily what Ruben would say, but this is definitely what you would say. Yeah, because this is your style. This fits into your brand and what you do, and that's that's how I've been successful doing that.
I agree with you, and I kind of limited myself now to just the friends, because we've always been really good at tags for other comics. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times just recently I'll be like, oh man, if she or he says this right here, or in the beginning, at the end, instead of the beginning, wherever they go, and then I always catch myself going, never mind. I'm not gonna worry, because the comics that I don't know that well, my fear is that they are sensitive, or it's kind of like, I don't know, you don't know me like that, dude. So then I catch myself kind of throwing them away. You know what I mean? It's just kind of going,
well, one of my, I mean, you've talked about this numerous times for years now, and a problem that I have, but at the same time, it's I've made a lot of money doing it, but focusing on myself, man.
Right.
You know, I've spent a lot of my career, which I don't mind, in some aspects of, you know, helping everybody else with their stuff and not really focusing on what I need to do for me.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's been great this past year, and us doing this podcast together, doing Ruby Tuesdays, and I don't have as many clients as I used to in terms of investing the time, because when you're writing for or collaborating with other comics, it does take a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And they have deadlines, and you have to meet those deadlines, and it does take away from what you're trying to do. So, and I only want to, and this might sound selfish, and this is totally opposite from what I would normally do. Me and you talk about, we have to do different things to get different results. And so one thing that I would never do before is ask for anything in return. So now, if somebody hires me and calls me and goes, "Hey man, can you help me with this?" It's like, yeah, but can you help me with this? Like, I need some help, because I was just raised in a way where I would never ask for help.
That's the one thing Ruben and I have in common, is we just
it's hard
asking for favors, man. We were just both raised that way.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was somebody who was always, still to this day, he's always doing favors for people or wanting to help out. But he just always had the heart. And when you grow up hearing that, like, oh man, I don't want to ask, I don't want to bother them with, you know, it sinks in, man, to you whereas, man, you know, we know not only comics, but actors and writers who just go, "Oh yeah, I got a hold of so-and-so, man." I said, "Yeah, I'll help you with that, but you're giving me the role of this."
Yeah.
It's like, that's it.
And there are people that we know that constantly asking people, you know, the hardest thing about doing Ruby Tuesdays, and not even really the podcast, because we haven't had that many guests on, and we're going to start having more guests on, is asking, man.
You have to ask the comics,
you know, and to send a text message or to pick up the phone and call and say, "Hey man, will you come do my show?" It's tough for me because of my personality. It's a very hard thing for me to go, "Hey man, will you come do my show?" Now, fortunately, I'm to the point now with the show where I don't really have to reach out to most people,
and then people are reaching out to you for the most part.
And people are reaching out to me, and you know, the final decision isn't mine. You know, Jamie's involved in it also too. So that alleviates a lot of
Jamie
stuff.
Masada, owner of Laugh Factor. Whisper out to Jamie.
Why did
whisper?
Shout
Wait,
out.
what happened?
You said whisper.
Yeah. Whisper out to Jamie.
Why do you always have to change things, dude?
Well, don't you get bored of saying everything that's been said for years and years and years?
It's a part of the culture, man. Respect it.
Well, listen.
Shout out.
That's your African American thing.
Yeah.
And for me, for the Latinos, it'll be whisper out. And besides, it fits us a little bit better. We're more laid back. We're like, whisper out, eh?
Oh my God.
Hey, whisper out, Holmes.
Really? Really?
You see? I like that. That's a good one, man.
No, it's not.
We gotta keep that going.
Whisper out. You're really writing that down. But that's you know.
And besides, you know, we'll get into this. But now that I did my DNA test, and we'll do an episode of that, my DNA results. But because of that, I do kind of feel you on the, you know, shout out, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, I feel you, but we'll get into that.
No, we'll get into that another time.
That's a whole, that episode.
We have to talk about that off the show, because there's parts of it that's really offensive, man.
No.
Yeah.
No, you're dealing with it. And listen, and here's the thing.
I'm not dealing with it.
It's going to be a whole episode on my DNA results.
No.
The whole time.
No.
We're going to talk about what I'm going to be doing forward after learning what I've learned.
Yo, you haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
You haven't, because you're, never mind.
I'm not going to say too much to everybody. Let me put it to you this way, what I found out. Ruben's going to have to change his introduction from my brother from another mother to my brother from the same mother. If y'all catch my motherfucking drafts.
Oh, Jesus.
Anyway, let's continue with Ruby Tuesdays. Speaking of that,
yeah,
like you said, now they're coming to you. It's a diverse show.
Yeah.
You're putting everybody on it. And I know you wanted to tap into that a little bit about how your lineups differ.
Well, I had a conversation
about comedy, what's going on.
I had a conversation.
You're welcome for that.
After the show. Anyway. I mean, you stumbled into that one, but we'll keep it going.
I really didn't know. See, that's how I know.
All right, can I finish the point?
Come on, man. Blood.
All right.
Come on, blood. Come on, man.
Because I come from, so you're wearing blue. There's so much you have to learn. Anyway.
But it's got writing. It's a little different, isn't it?
No, I mean.
This is light blue, dude.
All right. Okay. Can we not,
Got it.
We have to do a tutorial with you so you can learn a little bit more about culture since you're going to start throwing it around that you're 2% black.
Oh, you're not supposed to.
No, I'm saying it. And you're not.
It's not just plates.
But here's the thing. Everybody on the planet has a percentage of black in them.
I know that because we're all from Africa. But
yes.
I have the specifics.
Sorry, people.
Congo and by the way, whisper out to my Bantu people.
Oh, Jesus.
Bantu people. Whisper out.
No.
Go ahead.
Anyway.
Now, Ruby Tuesdays.
So someone came into me and was like, yo, I really think the show, he was like, great show. And I was like, oh, thanks a lot, man. He was like, I never really thought about he was like, I just go to comedy shows. And he's like, I never really realized that you don't get diversity in shows until he came to Ruby Tuesdays.
Right.
And that's the whole point. That's the whole reason why I started. Well, one of the reasons why I started Ruby Tuesdays is because I just felt like comedy is really segregated, and people are trying to act like it's not. And some people might think it's corny, and some people might think it's cheesy or whatever. But I think it's important to me. I don't know. I've just always liked variety, and I think a lot of issues that we have in this country with race and stuff like that is because we are segregated, even in our private lives. You know what I mean? Publicly, you might go to work and work with different types of people, but if everything is constantly you're just around people who look like you, that's fantastic. I mean, I love black events. I love being around my people, but with segregation sometimes comes lack of opportunity. And doing these theme nights, especially when I first came up, like there's such a need for black rooms because black comics weren't getting spots in the main clubs. And isn't funny that we like to say mainstream, but really what mainstream means is white. That's what we're really saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, we had to start all these black rooms and have all these nights because we weren't getting spots on other nights. So then the clubs got smart and they make a ton of money on these theme nights. If to this day, I think that the Monday nights at the Improv that
Mo Better Mondays,
Mondays, but I think it's Mo Better Monday stopped and then now D-Ray does it, but still that Monday night for years and years and years was their most successful night consistently by far. Chocolate Sundays at the Laugh Factory
always busy.
Yeah, it's their most successful show. But why? Because there's a need for entertainment, so sometimes you can go and see people who look like you. It's not saying that the whole show has to be that. So my thinking is, I did all the black rooms for years. That's all I did coming up before I started working like the Laugh Factory and the Improv and the store, whatever, mainstream rooms, the Ice House, and working on nights that just weren't theme nights. There used to be a time when I used to call in when I got in to be a regular at the Improv, I used to send in for spots, and they would always just give me Monday nights.
Yeah.
Like, yo, I can tell jokes on other nights other than Monday.
Right.
And I don't think people realize that. I don't think the average fan realizes that when you go to a comedy club, you're mostly going to see white males.
Right.
And
and not very many females.
And not enough
females out getting enough spots.
And
then females of color as well.
And I just think if we're not conscious of it, it's not going to change. Now, I know that there's a huge debate in the comedy community with the lack of representation of women on shows.
Yeah.
Now being a part of booking a show, I'm sensitive to that. And one thing that you do know about Ruby Tuesdays is I have a woman on every single show.
You've even had 2 on the. Now, I know that sounds crazy, everybody. Like, some people are going to go, oh, 2, what are you bragging about you? But you rarely ever see 2 women on a regular show. Now, at the store, because the show is literally 3 hours long, they're able to fit 2 or 3 females on. If you look at those lineups in the original room,
sometimes, not all the time,
and not all of them. Sometimes there's only 2.
Yeah,
sometimes in a 2.5 hour night, 3 hour night.
And from what some of the women have been saying, sometimes there's none. So again, I'm not really there, and I'm not involved, and I don't pay attention enough to know.
Not even. It's not about.
But
each
I just
club,
hear
it's
a lot.
Just
I just hear a lot from women comics regarding that. And even on my birthday show, I had Tiffany Haddish, I had Dominique, and I had Yamanika. And not only did I have them all on the show, I put them back to back to back on the show, and they all killed and they all murdered. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who goes, man, you shouldn't care what race somebody is. You shouldn't care if it's male or female. Just put the funniest comics on the stage.
Right.
Well, guess what? Comedy's subjective.
Yeah.
And there's some people listening or watching this podcast now that just don't find women funny. But that's a personal preference. There are people out there who do find women funny. There are successful comedians that are women, from Ellen DeGeneres to Roseanne
Ellen
Barr,
was usually the first one that
to
pops
Tiffany
in my head,
Haddish, to Ida Rodriguez. I mean, the list goes on. Zainab, Yamanika. Like, I can name a lot of Adele Givens,
Lonnie Love,
some more. There's a lot of Nikki Glazer. Like, I'm not going to sit up here and name, but there's a lot of women out there. Now, do we have access to them out there? I'm sure in some aspects you do, but are you actively going out and seeking that? So getting back to the point of when people go, hey, you should put up people who are funny no matter what race they are. Well, then you're just going to be coming from your own desires, you know what I mean? Or what your own preference is. And if I'm booking a comedy show, for me, I just want to give the audience a variety. And you got to sometimes consciously think of other people outside of just what you would normally do. So if you're you have anybody, if you want to book all white boys on your show, go for it. If you want to book all black comics on your show, go for it. The black aspect, there's a deep understanding of it because it's lack of opportunity. So we needed to create space for black comics to be able to work. But on these other shows, I mean, there's plenty of places for white comics to work. they'll always be able to work.
Clubs just clubs in general will just hire whoever, regardless of if they're urban enough or if they're Latino enough, because that's what a lot of that falls into that people don't understand too. Some of these nights, I mean, I only did the Latino night at the Laugh Factory for years. Which was, I mean, I wasn't a regular yet, but that's all I got. But
isn't it amazing that you never hear somebody's white enough? He's not white enough.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, it's representative of our society and where we are in our country or in this world. But I just think if you don't make a conscious choice to include other people, people won't be included.
Yeah. Oh, that's not even what
I put the pen away.
Ruben was tapping.
I was tapping.
He thought my misophonia was ringing, but no. Oh, I didn't even actually. I was because I was gonna say I was thinking about what you were saying, and which was when I was doing those early open mic nights and whatever. There was no. It was just all of us together.
Yeah.
And then I started running into Latino comics and them going, hey, I run a room over in Pacoima. I run a room over in Montebello. And, oh, really? Yeah, it's a Latino night. Come down. Latino night?
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was, man. You know what I mean? And I don't know, for better or for worse, I got more stage time because of it. But, there were times in my earlier career, I kind of had a tendency to I started leaning towards those audiences a little. The material started becoming a little more Mexican, a little more, which was fine, I guess, because it made me stretch and reach and go in a different direction. But I kind of wonder, Rube, if that hadn't happened, if I had just been stuck with just regular shows, I was probably the only Latino on those shows back then when I was starting out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't make it. I didn't go up going, oh, we only have one Latino. I just went up and did my observational comedy.
Yeah, you just do your comedy.
I was just doing my comedy.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of a double-edged sword where sometimes it can alter the way your comedy, the direction that it went.
Yeah.
For me, it did change it a little bit for me.
Yeah, but here's what I try to avoid, and it happens a lot with the women aspect of the point that I'm about to make is I try to eliminate the token on the show.
Yeah, sure.
Because like you said, you can do a show and you're the only Latino guy on there, or you're the only ethnic person. Because for years that was interchangeable. It's like, hey, if we got a Mexican, we don't need a black. Oh, if we got a black, we don't need
an Asian.
Yeah.
We don't need the
So it's just, hey, let's do all white, then we'll put one ethnic person on the show, and that's our diversity.
Yeah.
So
which is how television and film are now.
Yeah,
they shuffle us in between.
Yeah,
we can talk about that later.
Indians got hot, and now when you go in, it's like the whole cast is white, and then you got the blacks, the Mexicans, and the Indians auditioning for the same ethnic role.
Yes.
And it's 2019 and no one sees a problem with this.
I know.
It's just the way that it is.
I'm glad you brought that up.
It's just the way that it is.
I went in for this commercial audition, and I walked up and I immediately saw
last point.
Go ahead, yeah.
And then gay is mixed into that too sometimes.
Yeah,
it's like,
because they consider gay ethnic.
Yeah.
And then so now the white gays, black gays, Asian gays, and Middle Eastern or whatever, they're all vying against each other for that role as well.
Yeah.
Because are they going to go white gay? They're going to go black. But I went in for this. Was it? I think it might have been AT&T. I can't remember. But anyway, I just knew the role was Greg. Okay, it's Greg. Like, and I know you just got to immediately in my head. I'm like, well, I wonder who that. I could be a Greg. I know Latinos that are named Greg.
Yeah.
So. But whatever, we go out anyway. And I went in there and I started signing in, and then I noticed that I was signing in under there was two of them. And this one was Caucasian Greg. So I was like, oh shit, wait a minute. And I look over here, and over here it says Latino African American Greg.
Wow.
Over here to the side. I'm like, why aren't we all? Are they going to they really going to cast two separate, or are they just going? And so the girl goes, well, what did it say on your audition thing? And I was like, oh, I guess I didn't even catch that. And then I look at it and it said ethnic Greg. It said Greg, role of Greg, underneath ethnic. So I'm like, I didn't know they're going to have two separate sign-ins.
It's 2019,
and I'm already going to myself. I'm thinking, well, I'm looking at the other guys walking in. I'm looking at the white actors coming in. I've seen a ton of these guys on commercials.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those guys that you see all the time.
The time that are booking.
And I go, well, why are we? So when they ended up pulling us into the other area and they brought us in, and then they paired us up with the wives, which was, of course, Latino, black.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, they could easily mix us together. So somebody even said, one guy kind of went, as they brought us in to tell us what's going to be happening in the scene, one guy's like, is one of these in Spanish? And
yeah, because why are we doing this?
And is the other one urban? Like he didn't know how to. It was the In other words, were they going to have everybody read this? And the guy goes, no. You're reading exactly as Caucasian Gregs over there are all reading. Well, then why aren't we under the same audition?
Dude.
Why isn't it just Greg? And they're looking for everybody rather than Caucasian Greg and then Hispanic and African American Greg?
It's so sad because,
dude,
it's the norm, and until we disrupt and bring things to the forefront, things are going to continue to be the same. Could you imagine?
I really wanted to walk out. You know how, you know when you want to just walk out.
Of course.
And then the guy saw me. The casting dude, he knows me, and he saw me, and I was like, well, I'm stuck here.
So Baskin and Robbins, right? They're known for having what 31 flavors, right?
Yeah.
So could you imagine?
I believe it's Baskin Robbins.
Oh, Baskin Robbins.
Yeah, it's Baskin Robbins.
So,
just again, no, I'm saying it because you know how people somebody.
But I said basket.
No, you said Baskin and.
Oh, Baskin Robbins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Is Baskin Robbins or Baskin and Robbins?
Right. Just Baskin Robbins.
It's just Baskin Robbins?
Just Baskin Robbins.
Is it just Baskin Robbins?
Yeah.
All right.
Just so
let's just say 31 flavors. How about that? Can we just say that? Can we move the fuck on and just say 31?
No, I bring that up because I know how people can be technical about little things like names.
I don't care about those people.
Well, I was talking about me.
Oh yeah.
It kind of irritated. No, it didn't irritate me. I just wanted to.
All right, can I make my point?
Yes. I mean, I can't say I can't do any correctness on this show.
Because you correct constantly. See? Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep tapping. All right. This is my point.
Yeah.
So if you went into 31 flavors and all they had was vanilla every time, at some point you're gonna go, that's not what you guys are advertising, right?
Correct.
It would be weird.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing with comedy. People just seem to go, hey, we just put on the best comics. Then, ironically, all of them just happen to be white.
Right.
No, it's just because you're not actively out there looking and pursuing, and you're only looking at things from your perspective.
Yeah.
You know, when you come to Ruby Tuesdays, one thing that I'm proud of is you're going to get a variety. You're not going to see the same thing. And guess what? I can have 2 black comics on one show, and you're still going to get diversity because the 2 black comics aren't the same. There's this perception.
Yeah, because you know that. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a perception that all black comics talk about the exact same thing.
Right.
And just because we come from a place in this country of oppression and maybe our experiences are similar, but we're not all the same. As a black man, I can say that when I go to white shows. Like, it's always, the same. I can say the same thing in reverse.
Right.
They just don't hear it, and they don't probably realize from our perspective as black people in this country, we look at it probably the same way. That's why it's so nice, I think, and refreshing that when you come to Ruby Tuesdays, you're going to get a variety. No one is going to be the same. No 2 comics are going to be the same. No. Nobody's stepping on topics is usually.
See, that's the other thing too. Like you all, but that's because you know how to book properly.
Yeah.
There are still comics out there who run their own shows who don't know how to do that still.
Yeah.
There's still, and I'm talking even with diversity.
Yeah.
They'll put on, you'll see the lineup.
Yeah.
And I'll go, well, those 2 guys are going to be literally the same show.
Yeah.
Those 2 girls there almost talk about the exact same, because it can't, if you don't know how to book properly, it's going to happen. And you'll bring on somebody from, Chris Spencer, and then you'll have somebody like
Alonzo.
They're completely different.
Yeah. The only thing they have in common is the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And for me, I take it seriously, and I really do. That's why some comics go, man, I might have an open spot, but I don't have an open spot for you, for your particular style.
I've explained that to comics too, like, that have just been, man, I'm trying to get on. Go, hey, dude, he does it in a. It's not that he doesn't want
everybody to shine, man.
Yeah.
I want to put everybody in a position where everyone can stand out and be appreciated.
Right.
So I kind of look at it as the draft. If I was drafting like in football, if I was drafting a team, it's like, am I going to draft 4 quarterbacks in a row?
Right.
That they all play the same position, they all do the same thing.
Throw the same arm.
It's like you want to mix it up. I need a quarterback. I need a tight end. I need a receiver. I need a DB. I need a running back. I need a tackle. I need a guard. Whatever it is, and I kind of look at
a Baker.
Oh, jeez.
Thank you.
Oh, really?
Thank you.
No, don't laugh.
Come
at
on,
that.
man. I threw that in right at the right time.
Chris is a little slow anyway. Chris, are you?
Stop. Hold on, I'm gonna write that down. That's gonna be great.
No, it's not. No, it's
Anita Baker.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, and that's one thing I think, like you said, getting back to the whole point of shaping your comedy. I just think there's a lot of comics out there, ethnic comics, that because they don't have the opportunity to work in front of a lot of different type of audiences, it probably stagnates their growth or their ability to, talk about other things and that they think only black people would want to hear, or only Latinos would want to hear, or only Asians would want to hear, or only gays would want to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
is broader than that. And I just and that's the cool thing is they get to come on the show and they're allowed to be who they are. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't have to. Like, if they predominantly work black rooms and I put them on Ruby Tuesdays, it's not like they have to try to cater to, because it's everybody's in the room.
You'll have one of them is going that route, and then the other one will come up a little later going, "Hey, we need to talk about some politics."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, so that's how all the clubs should be.
Yeah.
So,
variety. People want variety. If getting back to that 31 flavors analogy, if you come in, it's like, this is it. But audiences don't even realize they're getting served pretty much the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And again, all these minority nights, quote unquote minority nights, or the black nights, or whatever we want to describe it, those nights are definitely very, very important.
Yeah,
but
of course,
I'm excited sometimes to be able to expose black comics or Latino comics or other ethnic comics that I know, to put them in an environment where they can perform in front of a broader audience, so they can understand. It's like, oh, they get my stuff too. They understand this humor too. They can still be who they are and come from their place of truth, and all different races can appreciate it. Because that's the real thing that's interesting, is people tend to think like, okay, like, black people don't think George Carlin was funny, or black people didn't think Seinfeld. Like, there's black people who don't think Seinfeld is funny. Like, no, just because you're a certain race doesn't mean you only like comedy from that race, and it limits us. And just like you don't think there's white people that love Bernie Mac, absolutely, or love Pryor, or love Cedric, or love you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
And just to think that we think as human beings they don't have the capacity, like I don't have the capacity to love Bernie Mac and Jerry Seinfeld at the same time, is insane.
Yeah.
And that's how clubs and the industry books things. They just have this myopic view of things, and it just needs to be broadened, because that's what's leaving people out. And that's why our people are complaining about lack of inclusions and lack of diversity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And I feel like that's why people, when they leave your show, they're just kind of like, wow, man, that was like, this one, this guy, this girl, you know what I mean? And
one of my favorite things is if one of my boys comes, that I grew up with, like, yo, that white boy, hilarious. You know what I mean? Never heard of him.
Yeah.
Never seen him.
Now
this white
so-and-so's got a new fan and could spread the,
it gives you a chance to broaden it, or even, there's been white people that come up to me, is like, who's that one black guy? And it'll be somebody that they should know,
right?
But because they've only been segregated, that these white people have no idea that they existed. Shout out to Rodney Perry. One conversation that I had with Rodney goes, Rube, when I come out to LA, I definitely want to do your show. And I said, of course, man. He goes, black people already know me. He goes, I just want to expose my brand. He was like, I can work white rooms. I started out doing white rooms, but he got popular in the black community, doing the black circuit, working with Monique and different people. So that's been his fan base. But he's funny enough and should have the opportunity to play in front of different audiences. But unfortunately, we're not given those opportunities, man. So you're kind of stuck. And then when it comes to casting purposes, it's tough, because it's almost like the industry chooses, well, who's the most popular black? That's who we're going to go after. Yeah. So they'll show up on the night, and then they'll choose the best, instead of just having it. I don't know.
Wait, you mean you said it with casting or with comedy?
Casting and stand-up. Both.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. When they're coming to look, like you look at this industry where it seems like there could only be one hugely successful guy at a time
at each
it goes
moment.
from Chris Tucker to Cat Williams to, I'm not given any particular order, but I'm just saying,
yeah,
it's almost like they only think it could be one when there's a lot of great, talented people out there who deserve opportunities. And at the end of the day, all this is just about opportunity.
Right.
And not just for Black people, for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think the last successful Latino sitcom was Chico and the Man, right? I mean, Jane the Virgin's on, but I don't know if
Latino
Latino sitcom.
George Lopez show.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So there was a gap. So it's been a gap. It's been a gap since his then. There was about a 20-year gap between Chico and the Man, and when was it? Late 90s that his show got George's show started?
Late 90s, early 2000s. Can you look that up, Chris?
And then the Chico and the Man was probably late 70s or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there was 20 some years, and then I mean, I guess you can. Is Jane the Virgin? Would that be considered a Latino show? It's not a sitcom though, right? It doesn't fall in a sitcom category.
You know what? To be honest, I've never seen the show, so I don't know.
It's because I think it's 1 hour, not.
Oh, it is.
I think it's 1 hour.
Oh,
Jane the
okay.
Virgin.
The George Lopez show.
That was the sitcom.
The sitcom on ABC. Yeah, I mean he's had a few, but his first one.
Yeah, it would have been. It had to have been. Yeah, you're right. Maybe 2000, 2001.
Yeah,
there we go.
So it was around that time.
Oh yeah. So there was about a 25-year gap,
mm-hmm.
and then there hasn't been a sitcom. I think what we would consider a sitcom. You know what I mean? I think Jane the Virgin's the closest. What was that?
Well, I was going to say Chico the Man started 74 to 78.
So even at the end of it, it's still another 20. That's still 24 years.
And we're talking about specifically for Latinos or Latinos.
Yeah. I'm just sometimes it blows our mind that these and then the last successful film. I know when Taco Shop was going to come out, they were like, this is the last time we had a successful Latino movie, a comedy was, I think, Cheech and Chong's last one. It's just weird, these gaps, dude. I don't understand why it's.
Let me say something. I think Jordan Peele came out and said he can't see himself like writing a movie or directing a movie that doesn't have a Black lead.
Right.
And people were like, oh, that's racist or this. Yeah. And it blows my mind. It's like, what world are you living in?
Dude.
You guys do that and still have been doing that since the beginning and still now.
Yeah.
Like television doesn't really represent the life. And that's in art is supposed to reflect life.
Right.
So you see, like in what world do we live in where there's always a token? Like it's usually not like that.
No,
you know what I mean?
No.
So it's just weird that people are in the upper, like whenever a Black person wants to empower their own or just to tell their stories, because that's all it is. If a white person can go, hey, we're going to tell our story. This is my life. This is my story. And it's like, he's not allowed to tell his story just because it happens to be all Black.
Right.
So now it's an issue when you dominate the landscape anyway. Like it's like they want to be in total control of everything and create whatever narrative they want to create. And it's frustrating. It's like why? That's why we just need diversity, man.
And and then why aren't there shows where and you look at breakdowns sometimes, and of course there's a lot of times I'm going in for Jaime and Jose and all these guys, and then I'll look at the rest of the roles and cast and I'll be like, well, wait a minute, I have white friends.
Yeah,
I could be the white guy's buddy.
Yeah,
that comes over. I can be Steven.
Yeah,
but they can't put that in their head. It's like, no, we need the mechanic that comes over every now and then, Jose, that they know down the street. It's like, it's the weirdest.
It's so weird, man.
And yet, when you go to get-togethers for the most part with people and whatever you come over, you'll be introduced.
Yeah.
You know, some white guy's like, hey, it's my buddy from work, and he's black, or he's Asian, he's a Middle Eastern guy. Cool. But yet TV and film cannot.
No.
And let me tell you what else they have a hard time with. They're also, Hollywood is very heightist. So anytime they're casting, I'm telling you this right now, Chris, you're going to be running into this, dude. When look how they cast husband and wives. It's almost always. I'm telling you, it's probably 98 to 99% of the, maybe 99% of the time, the husband has to be taller than the wife.
Well, that's how the women like it. See, you're just short.
No, but
yes, it is.
But that's not life. You see people
but
that
Johnny,
are different heights all the time. The man is shorter than the woman.
You probably notice that because you're always looking up. But the point I'm trying.
Oh my God!
Thank you, Chris. About time.
Now you like it when he's.
But no, Johnny. But seriously,
think about that. Think about that.
But if you talk to women, if you took a poll,
sure.
Most women
would say
don't want to be. No offense, my little friend.
I already know. I know this. I've told you
most
this.
women don't want to be with the little guy.
Yeah, short. We don't like. We're not little. Short.
Are you sure?
We're.
I don't want no short man. Wasn't there a song? I don't want a short man.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's a midget. I mean, I'm sorry.
We're stocky and we're not little. We went over this before.
Okay.
Little are the guys.
Short.
Just short.
You're short.
Because we're. I don't know what he is, but I'm 160.
I have a lot of female friends, but it's like, girl, if I could find a man that's 5'5", like I'm just.
There are women that think that way, but
they're 4'11". They're 4'11".
No. There's even no. There's
I love when short people get mad.
No, I'm not getting mad. I'm giving you the truth. There are actually that percentage is smaller. There are women out there who don't care. Like he can be the same height as me. He can be shorter than me. I don't care. Now that's a small percentage.
Very, very small.
But what I'm saying is
teeny tiny. There's a short percentage.
No, because there's like there's websites dedicated to like women who like shorter guys and whatever. So there are
climbthepole.com.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What they would be we would be climbing. Oh, we would be climbing. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
But still, it's
look how excited Chris got when you said when you said, "Yo, there's websites that are dedicated
to after."
Really?
So, but here's the thing: if you
littleman.com,
look at
girl, I'm about to give me a little man.
Yeah, that's right. Like, look at
they got different sections.
They did it a little bit.
Midget sections, dwarf sections. Then
now you're getting into other stuff.
Then just adult short guys.
So they sort of did it with it was a little bit with not like Lucille Ball and Desi were that much difference in height, but look at George Jefferson, dude. He was shorter than Wheezy. You know what I mean? But the weird thing is, if you look at people in America and around the world, that happens a lot. There are so to me, that's even
why don't you
bothersome.
protest? It'd be dope to see like you and a bunch of short guys with signs.
Yeah. And when we go when we set them down, the signs are taller than us.
Yeah,
set them down. You can't even see us. But it goes that way too. It's not just an ethnic thing. It's also.
Can we fight the racial battle first and then get to the short people later? We have to. Fight
I got to
battle
both. I got to battle the ethnic thing, the race thing. I got to battle the height thing.
Yeah, but let's
start. And then I got to battle the language thing.
Yeah, because you don't speak Spanish.
You
don't speak Spanish.
You guys will find out now. It all makes sense why I'm not fluent in Spanish.
Is because
whisper out to my real peeps, epa, to the Portuguese.
Oh my!
As I found out, epa, what's the matter for you?
Does your mom speak Spanish?
My mom speaks Spanish.
Okay. Anyway. So the whole point is we should fight the battles of...
That's because her dad did not allow her mom to teach them Portuguese.
But the point is...
Otherwise, she would have known
your mom's
three
Mexican
languages.
now, right?
No, she's half.
Okay.
She's half Mexican, half Portuguese.
Okay. And your dad?
Mexican.
Okay. So your dad is Mexican.
Yeah.
Your mom is half Mexican.
Yeah. And you would think I would be 3/4 Mexican, wouldn't you? That's what you're about to say.
I mean...
And I only came up a third. And that's because it doesn't, everybody thinks, we've all thought that for I mean, who knows how many generations. Everybody always goes, I get he's so and so. I've been telling people I'm at least 3/4 my entire life.
Uh-huh.
I thought I was. And I thought, well,
mean-
maybe I'm a little Portuguese, and I figured maybe 15, 20%. Now, come to find out if this is accurate,
Yeah.
which does happen. And I read up on this. I didn't
But
realize.
you went to what service did you use?
Ancestry.
Yeah, it's a little watered down. I mean, I've heard complaints about them. But go ahead.
No.
Yeah, it's not totally accurate.
Well, here's what's great about Ancestry that's better than the other ones. The other ones are not separating Portugal and Spain. They're putting them together as Iberian. So at least with Ancestry, they stepped it up. Now they're cutting. They're getting a little more specific. So for me to only be 33% Mexican was pretty kind of crazy, because I spent my whole life thinking I'm 3/4, and pretty much I would just tell people I'm pretty much Mexican.
Mhm.
And then if it's, I'm close to 40% Portuguese, what happens is, and I read up on this, is that we all just assumed for years it was, oh, my dad's okay, I got 25% from my dad then. He's 50%. I got from my mom. It doesn't work like that. You pull from,
of course,
each. Well, you say of course, but for a lot of people, they didn't know that. You just said what everybody else has been saying for decades.
But here's the thing,
which means you didn't quite know.
No. We're getting technical, but at the end of the day, when you're talking about in generalities, right? Your mom is not gonna when you go, hey, what are you? You're not gonna say I'm 14% this, I'm 15. It's like, come on, man. Your mom is half Portuguese and half Mexican.
Correct.
But when she goes through her DNA test, it might be
she came back like more than 50% Portuguese.
See?
She already did her. She's more than 50%.
So that's what I'm saying.
got.
So the point is, technically, then she's not half. But
okay, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But just to, it's just like one.
And look at it this way, dude. If I'm 38% Portuguese and 21% Spanish, which is the Iberian Peninsula,
yeah, but no
that's
one's doing
50. That makes me almost 60% European.
Yeah, Johnny,
and this whole time my life has been.
But
hey, we're supposed to do this on a different.
But unfortunately, society doesn't care. They just go by what you look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, because when people used to come up to me after shows and they'd go, "Are you sure you're just Mexican? Because you don't look Mexican to me." Or us, or whatever, right? And I'd go, yeah, I mean, my mom, I got a little bit of, I go, maybe, I would always go, okay. I would have
what are you gonna, if you had to fill out a job application, what are you going to put on your application now? You're going to put all the percentages down?
I'm not going to put the percentages. I'm going to put.
You're Mexican, dude.
I'm not, because Mexico is completely separate from Portugal. Those are two completely different cultures.
So now you don't identify as Mexican anymore?
I'm a third Mexican, aren't I? I'm a third. 33%. That's a third.
Okay. And what's the biggest percentage?
Portuguese, 38.
So now you're gonna start telling people you're Portuguese?
What if I am more Portuguese percentage-wise than Mexican?
You just said you're 38%.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would somebody say then if they found that out? Would they say, I could say I'm Portuguese and Mexican?
This is what I would say.
It's almost a split.
If I had the conversation, if we're just having a general conversation, if you're talking to just a normal person, a regular conversation, you go, hey, what are you? Like, oh, my dad's Mexican and my mom's
Portuguese
and Mexican.
No, that doesn't tell. No.
No,
you don't go off of your parents. You don't tell people, "Oh, my parents are this." They ask you what you are. I would say, listen, I'm Portuguese and Mexican.
Let me make my point. If somebody came up to you and go, if obviously they go, "Hey, you don't look totally Mexican. What are you?" If you didn't do your DNA test, if not everybody's going to go out and go to Ancestry.com. We don't know if that's accurate.
Or
anyway.
23andMe. Yeah. No, they almost the same companies do the testing for the big three.
So the bottom line
is you can't say that, because the other two big ones do the same thing.
Do the same thing as what?
They use the same company for the DNA testing. But
some of them, but they break them up differently.
They break up. 23andMe is a little bit more about your breakdown, and
let me get back to the point.
Migration is more on Ancestry.
Let me get back to the point. If these tests didn't exist, which the majority of people don't take the test, and you go,
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
and somebody comes and you go,
but that's why we're taking them.
Somebody goes, I mean, that's why you're probably taking them. But what does it matter if you've identified as something?
But
the whole point?
Ruben, you're the type of person that's probably gonna spend the rest of your life going, yeah, I'm Haitian, and that's it, not knowing you might have a lot more French than you think you do.
But what does it matter?
You don't want to know what you are?
I know what I am.
100% you don't. I mean, 100% he doesn't know. You do not know that.
So it gets back to my
100%.
original point. So now are you going to identify as Portuguese since that's the...
I mean, I'm definitely going to throw Portuguese out there now when people ask me because you didn't let me finish earlier. Let me finish my point. People used to come out to me and say, what are you? Are you sure you're just Mexican? Because you do not look Mexican to us or me or whatever. And I used to say, oh, well, pretty much aside from my mom, my mom's half Portuguese. And they would always go, that's it. And I would say to myself, these people don't know what they're talking about because it's got to be such a small amount. I didn't think it would show through. In other words,
oh yeah, just that's random.
But it happens so many times. Although I would always tell these people, that's really weird that you bring that up because I grew up around almost so many Portuguese people that are my friends. So for me, the reason why we even did this to begin with was because we knew my mom was, we thought, split down the middle. We also weren't sure about my dad because my grandfather was adopted. So we specifically wanted to know, and thank God they have these things now because people are starting to not only find out a little bit more about themselves and where they really came from, which is really weird for me because finding out that the percentage of Portuguese, if that's accurate, which I'll do the other one. I'm going to do the other one as well, just to do a back double check. But for me to have been hanging out with all these Portuguese people, and for even some of those guys back in the day giving me shit, hey man, what's this Mexican doing at our festa again? I was always I looked like the Mexican that was hanging out with all Portuguese guys and girls. Okay, so the fact that that my percentage is higher with the Portuguese than it is with the Mexican, I look back and kind of go, man, that all makes sense. Now, what was I gravitating towards these friends of mine because I did have a higher percentage of Portuguese than I did Mexican? I don't know. But isn't that a little crazy?
But didn't you say you grew up around mostly Portuguese people?
Well, no, there's tons of Mexicans in where I grew up and tons of white people. But the guys I ended up hanging out with the most were the Portuguese guys, just by random chance. I mean, or was it? Was there something that made me pull toward them that I didn't really know? In other words, I mean, I strongly believe in that stuff. I've always believed in that. When people used to tell me, oh, wow, man, I found out, and and then they end up going, you know what's weird? I always had this thing with Italian, when I went to Italy, I felt something. I felt like I strongly believe in that. I really do. That's just me. Yeah. Nobody else has to agree with me on that. But I just thought, this is weird that it ended up being that. So if somebody were to ask me now, I would I'm not going to say my parents or whatever, because I would always just say Mexican before. And then if somebody was a little more, probed a little more, then I would go, well, maybe I'm a quarter Portuguese is what I would eventually say. To me right now, I'm Portuguese and Mexican, if that's accurate. You see what I'm saying? For me to just go, oh, I'm Mexican only, that doesn't feel right now to me. Okay. That's all. Yeah. I mean, and we weren't even supposed to do this on this episode.
No, but I mean, we're talking about diversity and a lot of different things, and it naturally went into that.
Am I going to be introduced as the Portuguese comedian from now on? Yes. Okay. If that's your next question.
All right. That's my whole point, because at the end of the day,
no, I'm totally kidding.
But you should. I'm gonna start telling everybody you're Portuguese.
Oh, stop.
That's what I'm gonna do.
No, this is the thing about Ruben.
That's what I'm gonna do. That's
like
he
takes something serious, something that means. No. This is the reason why our family did this, because just for this specific reason.
In full disclosure, I know I'm part Dominican. I know I have Dominican in me.
I think you did mention Dominican before. But what if you have? Why don't you get it done? So
I probably will. But Johnny, I don't know. I guess I look at life a little differently in the aspect of, my parents are no longer there. My dad was mixed, but you know,
was he the one that had Dominican?
But we're you know we're talking race and nationality.
Correct.
So those are two different things. A lot of times people confuse race and nationality.
Right.
Just like somebody's from Puerto Rico and they're black, they'll go, "Oh, you're not black, you're Puerto Rican." My family's from Haiti, and you know I do jokes about this all the time.
Yeah,
it drives me crazy. It's like, "Oh man, I thought you was black."
Right.
I am black. My family's just from Haiti. Black is a fucking color.
Yeah.
It's a race.
Right.
Nationality is I'm Haitian American.
Correct.
So my thing is, you found out that, you know, if it's accurate, that you're 38%.
And I'm gonna do a double check then. By the way.
Yeah, that you're 38% Portuguese, which is higher than your percentage of being Mexican. Correct.
Correct.
So now you're the Portuguese comic to me.
Well,
so
because I put it to you this way, before I would say it the other way around. I would definitely go, I'm Mexican and Portuguese, because I knew I had more.
Yeah,
I thought
you did. You thought you did. You know, based on that. But then it's a culture thing too. Your dad is, you know,
more of a Mexican.
More Mexican.
I grew up with the Mexican
culture. And then
culture.
your mom is Mexican also. So just in a general sense,
I identify
2.5. You know, half. Your dad being one whole Mexican, and your mom being half, you would think that that's how you'd be raised culturally as Mexican. Yeah. And it seems like that's how you were raised, right?
Yeah, assuming that we were all Mexican. My dad ended up being, I think my dad's Mexican was 60%. And then he had, of course, Spanish is always going to pop
And
up
here's the irony of this situation, having this conversation with you and being black. I have so many biracial black friends growing up where one parent was black, one parent was white, but we know society usually looks at you as if you have one drop of black blood, like, you know, if a parent was mixed, that you're black. And I have a lot of friends who have struggled with identity, and I'm not even going to dive into that because that's the own personal thing that I can't really relate to.
But isn't that but the one drop of black blood, you're black, is that from black people, or is that from
I think it's racist society, because, you know, the white race, you know, white supremacists they've based everything on them being pure, which is ridiculous because they're not pure. You know, the whole thing with Hitler and all that, even, you know, that whole thing coming into American society, it was like, you know, they hated niggers, so they wouldn't, you know what I mean? That whole thing is like, if, you know, you're tainted if you have black blood. You're tainted now.
But I always heard black people saying,
yeah,
that dude over there is in, and somebody's go, oh, he's half or he's a quarter, and he's like, no, he's black because he's got one drop of black blood.
We were taught that.
I see.
We were taught that. Yeah, we were taught that, just like we were taught a bunch of things when we came over here as slaves. You know what I mean? So if that's what people said to you, if the cops beat your ass,
I'm saying
you're not gonna tell the cops, hey, my mom is white. They look at you as a fucking black man.
Okay. But period. I feel like I've heard that for the last 30, 40 years. And this has
been going on for hundreds of years.
No. I'm talking about why would black people continue to say that about each other?
Because it's been ingrained in us.
I see. Okay,
over hundreds of years.
So you're changing it right now then. It doesn't need to be said anymore.
What does
one drop of black blood? It shouldn't be said then.
Yeah, but that's the perception though, because sometimes like the whole argument is
I meant with black people with black people.
Yeah, but that's
when somebody's mixed and they're a little lighter, or they're known to be half, and then they're going, no, that motherfucker ain't white, that motherfucker black, because one drop of black blood, then you black.
Yeah, but
so
that
doesn't mean they're ignorant for saying that, right? That doesn't mean that a black person is ignorant for saying that. No, about somebody else that has black blood?
Because we're basing it off of what we know society views the person as. You know, look at Tiger Woods. There's a lot of people who get upset with Tiger Woods because he doesn't.
He came up with his
Cabellasian
own
or whatever.
Cabellasian or something.
Then, you know, the jokes in our community is like, oh, now he want to be black. Oh, now you want to do your black side. Now, you know, because we know, yeah, you can say you're mixed with anything you want, but the white man looks at you as a nigga. Period. No matter what you're mixed with. And that's where that whole thing, one drop of black blood, because that's how we've been treated in this country for centuries. So that's where that comes from. So it's just been passed on, and I feel bad because you see people who come from a mixed family where their mom is white and their dad is black, and they're kind of forced to identify with one side or the other. I mean, this is a huge issue in the black community. It's huge that a lot of people aren't privy to if you're not black, because these are conversations that I can't even tell you how many times that we've dealt with that. I've dated somebody who's interracial and their dad is white and their mom was black, and especially it goes back to what type of environment you grew up in. Yeah, did you grow up around all black people, or like were you in a interracial? Were you a product of an interracial relationship and grew up around black people? Or were you part of an interracial relationship and grew up around white people? Because that can make a difference too. But then it goes back to the parents. Who was the most dominant
Obama
parent?
was raised by his white side, his white grandmother and the mom.
And what do people say? He is the first black president. Now, if Obama was sitting, hey, I went to Ancestry.com and it says, but when people look at him, they're going to see a black man.
Correct.
Correct. And that's why I go back to something like, what are people going to say if you don't, like, some people are ambiguous. You might not know they are, but a lot of times it goes to how you're raised. I think there's a lot of different factors than just what a DNA test says based on
that makes who you. Yeah. Now look here, just for the record, like I was saying earlier, my grandfather was obviously very old school, and when he married my grandmother, who was full Portuguese, her parents came from Portugal, he did not allow her to speak Portuguese or make any Portuguese food, cook any. She had to speak Spanish, which the Spanish wasn't her Spanish. She still had the in her Spanish.
Oh, really?
It sounded like she had a lisp. We all thought she had a lisp, but it's because she had been speaking Portuguese her whole life.
Oh wow!
English and Portuguese. When they Portuguese is like if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, just numbers. I only know minimal, but it's un, dos, tres, cuatro. That's how they say it, right? It's almost got a little bit of that French in there. So we thought she had a lisp, but so I always think about how it would have been growing up with my mom if my mom had been allowed to know the Portuguese culture, that the food, how to make things, go in and celebrate Portuguese celebrations. She didn't experience any of that.
Yeah.
So on that end, my culturally, it's been a Mexican life, and dealing with the negative side of being Mexican. Beaner, wetback, spick, all that shit. You know what I mean? Little fucking Mexican, this kind of shit like that. When I could have just, if I'd have known all this before, that could have changed all that shit too.
Yeah,
I would have been like, I'm sorry, motherfucker, I'm Iberian.
Yeah, but that's something,
and you can't call.
But the
me
fact
that
you're an adult now, you know what I mean, and you were raised in a certain way. I mean, it's but just for you, dude, you're Portuguese from now on. Brother.
Oh, stop it!
My Portuguese
this
brother.
is the thing that drives me crazy.
You're Portuguese now. My Portuguese brother.
I shouldn't even have said.
Yo, man.
It's Epa, by the way.
Epa.
Yeah, man. But I shouldn't have said anything.
I got to call George, Paul Rodriguez. I got to tell
but I can tell you right now, Paul's going to go, I could have told you that, cabrón. That's not even a surprise. He's been the whitest Latino at every Latino tour. And then George is gonna be like, I know about that too. I can see it in his eyes. Orale.
But I
thought he was Indian.
But if we kind of wrap this whole thing up, it all comes from just how crazy this world is and how labels and being identified are just such a huge part of our society, and just the fact that we're all human beings and we are different should be celebrated. But the fact that it can be an issue in society just shows just how closed-minded people are and how much further that we have to go. Just the fact that you talked about the audition that you went on, what that was like to do that in 2019. Also to even have to have a show like Ruby Tuesdays. And I mean, all shows should be like Ruby Tuesdays.
Correct.
To be honest with you. And I always hear people say stuff like this, like the BET Awards or the NAACP Awards, and they go, why do you have shit? If they're the white people awards, you say that was racist. And it's just such a weird view that they're so unaware that they can never for one moment think like the only reason why those other award shows exist is because of lack of opportunity.
Yeah, they weren't. And And there was a time when none of them were being nominated for anything like ever, and being recognized or just being recognized.
Not being recognized because of racism. The Negro Leagues was started because of racism. So all these other things were created because of racism. So if we can try to eliminate the biases and the racists, then there would be no need for all these other things. Black rooms, black comedy, that whole moniker started because we weren't getting recognized and weren't getting the opportunities. So you got to fend for yourself. You got to do for your own. So hopefully, I
think I'll just say Portucan.
No, you're Portuguese now, man. My Portuguese brother.
And
man.
by the way, what's
your middle name?
Andrade.
Is that a Portuguese?
It goes both. It's Spanish.
Oh, okay.
It's Spanish. So it's used on both ends. There's Andrades that are. It's Andrade in Spanish. I don't know how it is in. It would probably be Andrade. João.
Okay.
João Andrade.
Right. Okay. Enough.
That's how they talk.
All right. Well,
maybe I'll change my name to just John Andrade.
I'm glad
João.
I'm glad we went in. I've learned a lot about you today.
That's how they all greet me. All my friends' parents. João. Instead of Juan.
Hey, Rube, who's that Mexican you be hanging around with? Mexican?
It's just...
Johnny? Oh, no. Johnny is Portuguese.
Oh,
yeah,
so
man.
Man. So annoying.
Dude, no more Cinco de... Drop that Cinco de Mayo bit. Drop it immediately.
God. A third.
5-5. Cinco de Mayo. Nah, you got to drop that.
I get to keep it.
Nah, you're an imposter, man. Yo, so, man, I'm excited, dude.
I am going to be in a poster. I'm glad
excited.
you brought that up. I'm going to be in a poster for the Pismo Festa.
I'm excited, man. So,
you're
so now
annoying.
you know, man.
So annoying.
So, a Mexican and a Portuguese walked into a bar. Yes.
João, what's the matter for you?
What is that?
That's the Portuguese accent.
But what are you saying? What were you translate?
John. Hey, John. What's up with you?
Say it again in Portuguese.
João, what's the matter for you? It says Portuguese and English.
I love it, man. You speak more Portuguese than you do Mexican than do you Spanish.
No, I know Spanish.
Did I just say speak Mexican?
You did. That's what you. We're gonna end on that.
You can't be offended. You can't be offended because you're not. You're more Portuguese than Mexican.
You speak more Mexican. Hey, think about that though. Isn't that funny how Mexicans and Portuguese? It's a combo of Spanish. Yeah. It's their own little combo of Spanish.
Well, cool. Anyway. All right, my Portuguese brother.
Portuguese Mexican right here. Good night, guys.
Portuguese.
Good night.
You're Portuguese. Anyway, I love you, man.
I love you too, bro. Oh, so annoying.
He's mad.
I know what he's. Anyway,
he's gonna be Portuguese. I can't wait to tell everybody at the Laugh Factory, man. Oh, this is gonna be awesome. You know Johnny's Portuguese, right?
Let me just.
I can't. I love it. Oh my god. I can't bust your balls anymore about not speaking Spanish, man. It all makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't speak Portuguese either.
You should get a tattoo of the Portuguese flag like on your arm, man.
And the Mexican flag on the other side.
We'll talk to you.
I'm still a third.
Yeah, but
I'm still a third.
But you got to claim the majority, brother.
And it makes sense. 30 Sanchez makes even more sense now.
Oh.
Before I was doing it because I was the third, and I'm third generation. Now I'm a third. 30 Sanchez. Hashtag 30 Sanchez out there.
Yeah.
THIRDY.
No more Mexican jokes from you.
30 Sanchez.
That's the end of the Mexican
Man, I'm tired of Mexicans breaking down on the freeway. You know how it is with us guys.
You can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
man.
I can.
No, you can't.
You're annoying the shit out of me. Let's get out of here.
Hey. You shouldn't have told me. Yo. Hey, what are you laughing at there, little feather?
He misread it. It's Mexican.
So before we go, Chris thought he was Indian this whole time, but he misread his DNA test.
He thought that Native American on those testings, the DNA, they're not talking about Native American Indians because they can't really do their test. They can't go back that far.
Yeah.
Or they're not tested or whatever. So he didn't realize that Native American, and that's why it says Sonora, Mexico, and then all these other places of Mexico. It's Mexican because Mexicans are native to here as well.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So you're Mexican.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
He found out what area. What's again? Lots. Tilashuaca or some cala.
So you get in touch with your Mexican side, and you get in touch with your Portuguese side.
I've been in touch with my Portuguese side since growing up in the San Joaquin Valley.
No, man.
I've been going to those weddings and festas my whole gosh dang life, and now it makes all sense. And to all you guys out there that were telling me, man, what's this Mexican doing here? Yeah. Now you know.
Now you know he's not Mexican, he's Portuguese, so eat it.
You owe me an apology.
Yeah.
Pereiras and De Silvas and Cardozas and Ribeiros and Santos and Avilas. You all owe me an apology.
All owe my Portuguese brother an apology.
Epa.
Thank you for listening. Catch us on iTunes,
Google Play,
YouTube, and I guess we're going to be adding other formats. Yeah. And Ruby Tuesdays every Tuesday night, Hollywood Laugh Factory, 9:30 p.m. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.
Ruby Motherfucking Tuesdays.
This show is all about diversity and bringing everyone together. You never know who you're going to see at Ruby Tuesdays.